Hey guys, it's Troy. So I'm in Warsaw and I've got another video for you today, and I want to talk about the importance of observation. Okay, that's probably the best way I can put it. What I mean by that is observing other people around you and how they act and what they do, and picking out the things from that that are good and replicating them yourself. So from a dating perspective, what I mean by this is quite simply, guys come at this from a whole bunch of different angles, right? And they come from a whole range of different baselines. Okay, so some guys will come to this and they are very, very socially adept. They're very socially clued up. They look good. They're in decent shape, etc., etc. And those guys obviously are easier to teach because it's not that they need to build the whole thing from the ground up. They've got the foundations. They just need to figure out what's going to go on top of that. Okay, there are other guys who come at it from a lower baseline. You know, maybe their social skills aren't that good, or maybe outwardly they present really well, but there's just something that's kind of, there's some missing pieces in terms of their understanding of social dynamics and how one should behave and what are attractive ways to behave, okay? And for me, it's never really been a huge problem knowing what it should look like to be somebody who's engaging and attractive with women. All right, it's never been a huge problem. And look, I came from a background of incredible nerdiness, incredible introversion, okay? A degree of misanthropy, to be honest. I quite like just shutting myself away in my room, reading books, not dealing with the rest of the world, and just cracking on with it, okay? I was shy and I was introverted. That is to say, I preferred my own company. I preferred not necessarily even spending time with other people. But I was also quite happy with that. You know, like shyness was, as I say, a part of that. I was also quite fearful of other people, but I actually enjoyed my own space and my own company as well. And when you've got that combination, it becomes quite difficult to break out of because, well, if I'm in a state that actually I quite like, I rather like just being on my own and doing my own thing. And I actually consider other people in many cases to be somewhat almost inferior to me. You know, I had that sort of weird kind of split egoic side to me, on top of which I also had this very low self-esteem also. But that's for another time. So yeah, it can be very hard to break out of that because what's your incentive to socialize? Well, of course, the big incentive to socialize when you're a young man is that you want to go out and meet women, you know, and for whatever reason, I was blessed with quite a large dose of testosterone or whatever other hormonal encouragements were required, and I really, really wanted to go out and date. I really wanted to meet women. So that was the thing. So you get put into this position by nature. You know, Mother Nature forces one into a position of thinking, shit, I have to figure this out. But for many years, up really until I was 20, I was very, very bad in the dating sphere. I didn't really date. You know, I had some women who were interested in me, and I was rejected by the ones that I was interested in, and so it ended up with nothing really happening. Okay, now if I could go back and do things again, I would do it very differently, but obviously that's not possible. The incentive to socialize really came about through my libido. I was forced by my libido to learn to socialize, but even at my most shut away, shy, sitting in a garret reading poetry times in my childhood and in my early adulthood, I still knew what a man-to-woman conversation should look like. Okay, I still knew basically how it should go down. All right, you know, between, like, let's say, quote unquote Chad and an attractive woman, I kind of knew how that should look. All right, I had a pretty damn good idea. It's just that I wasn't able to do it myself, or I believed I wasn't able to do it myself. How did I know what it should look like? Well, I would observe people around me. Okay, you know, I would be sitting at the school disco, or I would be sitting in the canteen at college, and I would observe the Chad guy going over and talking to that attractive girl. He would be making her laugh. He would be saying things. He would be engaging her in conversation. He would be drawing her in. Okay, she would be looking at him with those big puppy dog eyes. And as I say, joke telling, you know, humor seemed to be a big part of it, right? That seemed to be a key thing that a lot of guys would be doing. They would be unafraid of being flirtatious. They didn't seem to be inhibited in terms of expressing themselves in a masculine way. Okay, I could see all of this stuff going on around me. I just was too shy and lacked the confidence to do it myself. But there was never a moment when I didn't know what I should be doing, okay? And this was further supported by what I would see in the media, okay? Because I used to watch films like everybody, I'd watch teen films, high school movies, etc. Soap operas, things like Neighbours, the Australian soap that was really big in the UK in the 80s and going into the 90s. Home and Away was another one. And on those sort of teen-driven dramas, and in the movies as well, you would see the same thing. You would see the super hot Chad dude going over, engaging with the girl, giving her some riz, as the kids say today, and being entertaining but not too entertaining, having that bad boy sort of glint in his eye, all of that great stuff. You'd see this replicated time and time and time again. Beverly Hills 90210, I've referred to that quite a lot because of the character, I forget the guy's name. I always forget the guy's name, but there was a kind of a bad boy character in that who'd always get all the women coming to him. I would see this stuff in the media, I would see this stuff in real life, okay? So it always baffles me a bit when I get guys who come to me for coaching and they don't even seem to have the basic awareness of how it should go down between a man and a woman. It's not just that they say, oh, Troy, I know I should chat her up and I know I should be kind of entertaining and playful and a bit flirty and do this and that, but I just can't do it because I feel unconfident in myself or I don't feel I'm good enough or whatever. That's fine. That's one thing. We can work with that, okay? But there are other guys who they don't even seem to know what it should look like, okay? And I find that quite mystifying. I'm an empathetic guy, and that's why I work well with people. I'm able to sort of understand and get to the bottom of, why somebody's feeling a certain way and the way that they look at the world, and then try to help them through that lens. But I have to admit, there is something about me that puzzles me a little bit in these instances where these guys just don't even seem to have a clue about what the picture should look like, okay? So if you feel that you fit into that category, okay, what I would advise you to do is observe people around you, okay? And what I mean by that is when you go to the cafe, when you go to the restaurant, when you're sitting in the hotel lobby, or at poolside, whatever it is, look at the people around you and look particularly at the couples who are getting together, okay? Look at the couples who are getting it on, all right? Look at the guys. And sometimes this can be painful, by the way, because sometimes, you watch a guy and he's talking to a girl and you can tell he's getting some traction, he's being successful, and that can really hurt, particularly if you fancy the girl a bit. But even if you don't, it can hurt because you think, God, he's doing it and I'm not. So it can be painful, but nevertheless, I would urge you, don't shield your eyes from the sun. I would urge you, watch what's happening, observe, and try and just make mental notes about what he's doing, okay? And what he's doing that seems to be working well, okay? And I mean things like, is he making her laugh? Is he using humor? How long is he staying in conversation for? He's not probably just going up to her and say, hey, you look nice, can I get your number? Like, he's probably not doing that, right? The conversation's probably going on for longer. He's probably engaging her, okay? He's probably bringing value to her in some way, right? And even if he's super good looking, regardless, right? He's probably constructing the conversation or conducting the conversation in such a way that she's deriving entertainment or pleasure from it, okay? And maybe at the end of that conversation, they exchange phone numbers, all right? But you can see that a value exchange has taken place that isn't just predicated on how he looks. It may have partly been, but also he's done something else. He's concocted a social interaction with her that has been pleasurable for her, okay? So you want to observe that happening and think, okay, right, so now I get it. I can see what needs to happen here, broadly speaking, in a man-to-woman conversation, okay? There needs to be some humor. It needs to have some substance to it, okay? He needs to engage her. He needs to, well, just observe and see what happens, okay? And then think, okay, so how can I start to try and do those things myself? Or at least, even if you can't see your way to doing it yourself, what are the skills that you need to acquire in order to make something like that happen? Another thing that's really valuable, and guys may disagree with this, but I think that watching movies and watching TV shows can be helpful just in the sense that it gives you the broad brushstrokes of what an attractive guy might look like. Now, a classic example that I always use is James Bond, and specifically the Daniel Craig James Bond, okay? Because he is somebody who, well, for many reasons, he is a man who comes across in a very enigmatic, charismatic, attractive, manner, okay? And there's a lot that you can learn just from watching those movies and watching Daniel Craig's performance, particularly in regard to the women that he has around him, okay? Am I saying go out and get your hair cut like Daniel Craig and wear the same clothes and try to be a clone of him? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that there are things you can learn. For example, somebody asked me a question recently. It may have been on YouTube, it may have been in a comment section or something, and he said, so what's the difference between being funny versus being a clown, okay? Because we don't want to be a clown in front of the women that we want to attract. Well, clearly you don't. And if you look at somebody like Daniel Craig playing James Bond, you get a very good idea, because does he use humour? Well, yes, he does, sometimes. He's got that kind of twinkle in the eye. He's got that gentlemanly kind of debonair sort of, and he'll throw in some little double entendres and things like this from time to time, sort of subtly under the radar. Is he grinning like a buffoon? Like one of those soy boy pictures you see online? Like, no, of course he's not. Okay? Is he telling ridiculous jokes that go on for ages and there's some massive punchline that doesn't really come off? No, of course he isn't. Okay? He's using wry, dry, subtle humour. Okay? Is he smiling all the time? Well, not really. Again, there might be a quizzical, slightly enigmatic smile at the beginning. There might be a raise of the eyebrows. That was something Sean Connery obviously did as well a lot. That is present, yes, but he's not there cracking jokes. He's not like slapping his thighs and coming out with stupid, ridiculous witticisms. He's not being a buffoon entertaining the masses, okay? He's doing it in a very controlled, very civilized way, okay? Is there an undercurrent of sexuality? Well, absolutely there is. Again, just look at those raised eyebrows. Look at the suggestiveness of what he's saying. But is he coming out with it and being crude? No, he isn't. Okay, he's a gentleman, right? Is he putting her on a pedestal? No, obviously he's not. Does he indicate to women that he likes them, that he finds them attractive? Does he imply that he would like to get sexual or romantic with them? Yes, he does, but he's not showering them with attention. He's not making it out to be like, oh my God, she's a goddess. I need to have you, otherwise I'm going to, it's going to lead to my demise. None of that. Nevertheless, the man to womanness, his desire for her is implicit in the way that he speaks to her, okay? But it's under the radar, it's controlled, and she knows, she intuits, just from the way he is and the way he comes across, that really whether she accepts him or rejects him, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference to him. His life is going to continue. His mission is going to continue. He's inevitably going to go and meet other women. So he would like to be with her. He would like to be with her in that way. But, if she isn't down for that, then that's absolutely fine as well. Okay? There's so much you can learn about how these interactions should look from both observing other people in real life, and infills can help with that as well to some extent, but also just regular people that you see around you in real life. And looking at fictional characters like Bond, or Gossip Girl is another example I use a lot. Chuck Bass in Gossip Girl is quite a good example of that kind of bad boy character who's flirtatious and sexual and draws women in. There are many others. Choose whatever appeals to you most. But watching those, and I'm not saying become a carbon copy of these people, but you need to at least have an understanding of the game. The overall, the pitch, let's say. You've got to have a sense of the pitch before you go out and start playing the game. And it does concern me sometimes that I feel like guys, I don't know whether it's they've been sheltered or they just haven't got out very much, or they just, I don't know what it is, or they're too analytical, they're too in their head. And maybe they don't observe other people enough, and maybe that's part of the problem. I've always loved to watch, I've loved people watching all my life, right? I love to sit down in a cafe and look at people and observe what's going on and figure it out. Again, I'm not saying copy people, but I am saying you need to understand the parameters of this stuff, okay? Otherwise, you really are starting off from a disadvantage, okay? It's a bit like if you wanted to paint the Mona Lisa, okay? You wanted to paint a version of the Mona Lisa for your apartment. You at least want to know, broadly speaking, what the Mona Lisa looks like before you start. Otherwise, you've got an impossible task, okay? If you see a picture of the Mona Lisa and then they take it away and they say, right, now paint a version for your apartment, well, you've got a chance of doing that now, right? Because you've already seen it. If you don't know what it's meant to look like, then you're screwed. And it's the same thing with this dating and game stuff. So look, regardless of where you're starting from, I can help you, sure. I've worked with guys who come from a very, very low baseline with all of this stuff. Their understanding is, for whatever reason, is quite low, and we managed to get them up to, to a decent level so they're performing well. That's absolutely possible. But it just to help you for your own development and for your own sanity, really. You need to observe what's happening around you, both in the culture, both in media, and also just generally, people who are literally in your proximity. You need to understand, you need to spend some time analysing and make notes if you want to. I mean, there's no shame in that. Sit down, make notes, write down. I saw this guy in the cafe, he went up and talked to this girl. This is what he did. Maybe I can use that next time. Anything like this is really, really going to help you so much. So listen, I want you, if you haven't done this already, subscribe to the goddamn channel. Like, what the hell are you doing? All of this free content, this free gold that's being put out every day pretty much on this channel. So you need to give me a subscribe, okay? Like the video, write a comment beneath, okay? Let's push it out to more people. And if you want to jump on a call with me to discuss your dating life, you can absolutely do that. My Calendly link is below. Hit that link, book an appointment with me. We'll do a 15-minute call for free, no obligation. Have a chat about where you're at, and I'll see if I can help. And let's take it from there. Let's make 2023 summer the best summer of your life. I'll speak to you very soon. Bye-bye.